So my name is Bernard Talliafero. I am Head of Distributor Management with Ericsson Region North America. And I've been with Ericsson now 3.5 years, and I come to Ericsson by way of an acquisition. Ericsson acquired Bel Air Networks. So what I'm going to talk about today is carrier quality end-to-end connectivity for the enterprise. Before I move forward, I feel like I should define what I mean when I say enterprise. So I'm talking about non-operator, non-service provider markets, hospitality, healthcare, education, transportation, venues and the like. So I'm just going to kind of jump right into the presentation now. A little bit about who Ericsson is and why we might be a credible source to listen to when it comes to end-to-end solutions. So Ericsson is a very, very large telecommunications company. We're 40% of all mobile communications worldwide travels through Ericsson networks or Ericsson equipment. We are the #1 provider of microwave worldwide, so microwave technology, point-to-point radios. We're the #1 provider of that product worldwide. We are the largest patent holder we're the 5th largest patent holder across the US and Europe. And all of this stuff kind of focused around the communications industry. So the slide says we know mobile. I like to say we know communications because that's really the business that we're in. And we also know that over the next 7 years, it's predicted to be about a 7x increase in demand for mobile capacity. For the most part, that's being driven by video traffic, the desire to stream video traffic. Now, we also know that 70% of all mobile communications takes place indoors. It's when we're at work, it's when we're at home. It's not when we're out on the street and things like that. It's when we're at stadiums, we're in venues, but we're indoors, we're in buildings. That's when the bulk of this traffic or the bulk of this capacity is being utilized. So as this increase in demand takes place, these networks in hotels, resorts, stadiums, and offices are being crippled by that demand. So as that increasing demand for capacity takes place, the quality and the capabilities of the components that are used to build these solutions becomes more and more important. It becomes more critical. You're going to need quality, scalable solutions to meet the needs of today and grow as your needs and your demands for capacity increase. So I would trust that to a company that's already being trusted to design, build, and maintain some of the largest revenue generating networks in the world, and in my mind, that's Ericsson. So that's kind of why I think we're credible. A little bit about who we are. As I mentioned, large telecommunication company. I mentioned the statistic where 40% of all mobile communications is traversing Ericsson networks, but also 60% of all LTE worldwide is Ericsson equipment. We're the 5th largest software company in the world, which I didn't know until Ericsson acquired us, so that was big news for me. We hold 33,000 patents. We are a 148-year-old, 118,000 employee, $34 billion Swedish-based company. Our U.S. headquarters is in Plano, Texas, just so you know that. And just by the pictures that I'm showing, you'll see that I'm going to be talking about some non-traditional, or what most people would think of as non-traditional Ericsson products. People typically think of phones and cell phone technology and things like that when I mention Ericsson, but I'm going to be talking about Wi-Fi access points and microwave phone solutions and switches. It's going to be that enterprise suite of products for that enterprise connectivity. So really, really quick, let's just talk about the typical enterprise network infrastructure. So you're going to have a phone system. You're going to most likely have some type of unified communications application running. So you've got presence awareness, so you know when someone's at their desk, you can send them an instant message or something like that. You can do video conferencing and things like that. You're going to have Wi-Fi access points that enable communications and access to resources throughout the facility. If you've got multiple buildings, you're going to typically have leased lines connecting those buildings. And you may have wireless connectivity using microwave to connect those buildings. And then lastly, I always point out every network, be it wired or wireless, eventually has to go back to a wire. So there's got to be switch ports where you're going to aggregate all of that traffic. So you've got your network switches and your LAN closets and in your main closets. So those are kind of the components that make up your corporate communications infrastructure. More often than not, different manufacturers' products are being used for like technologies in different buildings, in different regions within an organization. So it makes it very, very difficult to really completely optimize the infrastructure or to leverage components and get the most out of them. Oftentimes with your switch architecture, you've got various manufacturers. I used to be the WAN engineer for the city of Baltimore, and when I got there were switches and routers and other technology from at least 8 different manufacturers throughout the infrastructure for the entire city. So it was very, very difficult to manage the entire infrastructure. I had 4 or 5 different network management suites that I was then trying to feed into one larger portfolio. So it becomes a almost unmanageable nightmare. And that was before the days of unified communications and the ability to instant message people, but there were even different phone systems from building to building. So there was no way to totally take advantage of some of the technology that exists today. And we'll find that what I described still exists many places. So Ericsson's vision of an enterprise solution is an infrastructure where you're able to capitalize on all of your investments. You're able to have seamless, unified communications, awareness of presence when someone's at their desk, or even when someone's on their smartphone, for that smartphone to be part of the corporate phone system. So my phone becomes extension 2112 on that infrastructure. I can video conference with my coworkers while I'm walking down the street, or I can have a central network management platform that's monitoring and managing everything. So I'm capitalizing on those assets. I can have a single controller that is controlling the Wi-Fi infrastructure, although it's maybe regional or national or even global. So I've got access points all over the world, but I can centralize the management and really take advantage and leverage the assets that I have. And so that's Ericsson's vision of a enterprise, or a end-to-end solution for an enterprise using carrier class solutions. So I'm going to touch a little bit on the components that are involved in this, or the components from Ericsson that are involved in this. So since I come from Bel Air Networks, I'm going to touch on the Wi-Fi portfolio first, and I'll do that very, very quickly. So the Ericsson Wi-Fi portfolio consists of access points for indoor and outdoor use. There's a few things that are consistent across the entire product line. All of the access points are dual radio, so they have 2, 4, and 5 gigahertz built in. All of the access points also have what we call dual filtering technology. So we've got notch filters before and after the amplifier. What that does is it allows us to emit an extremely clean signal so that we don't interfere with any of the nearby spectrums. Typically when a DAS network is deployed in a building, the Wi-Fi access points are moved so that they're at least 12, 15, 20 meters away from those DAS antennas. Because of the technology that we use in our access points, we only need 2 meters of separation from DAS solutions and even macro solutions. So downtown New York City in Times Square, there are actually antennas from our Wi-Fi radios sitting right next to the antennas from AT&T's macro doing Wi-Fi offload, because we don't need a tremendous amount of separation. So it allows you to put the access points in the most optimal position for them to perform and provide coverage and capacity. We're the only one that does that, and that's in all of our access points. So we've got indoor product, 802.11n and 802.11ac. One of these products you're connecting to when you connect to Wi-Fi in McDonald's. The other you're connecting to whenever you connect to Wi-Fi in Burger King's. Then we've got what I call a hybrid product line, the 511X portfolio. The X denotes multiple variants, and those different variants are different antenna configurations. So this product line, it's rugged. Think about for indoor deployments, convention centers and places like this, stadiums, high density, high noise floor environments like transportation hubs. One that we're deployed in, that's a prime example, would be Grand Central Terminal in New York City. A couple of million people going through there every day, commuting throughout and around New York City. And then you go to the 100 series, which is our hardened, weatherized access point. So this is the type of access point that gets deployed on the top side on Navy destroyers. So it's taking saltwater spray 3 to 6 months at a time while that destroyer is out, on its tour. This access point is deployed in Prudhoe Bay, Alaska, which is the North Slope. So negative, something ungodly every day. That access point is there. They're deployed in Djibouti, Africa, where it's extremely hot, 12 midnight, it's dark outside, and it's still, 130 degrees. That's the types of places that access point gets deployed. And my absolute favorite deployment, one that I unfortunately did not get to go see, do the site survey or anything like that, the International Space Station. So that access point is actually on the International Space Station as well. So somewhat of a workhorse of a product, very, very rugged and robust. Then there's some supporting cast to the Wi-Fi portfolio. So we have an optional Wi-Fi controller. This product, like I said, it's optional. You don't have to have a controller in order to deploy 10, 100, thousands of our access points in a network. They will work, they will mesh together and all of that kind of good stuff without a controller. What the controller allows us to do is flatten very, very large networks so that you have seamless mobility or seamless roaming when the network has to cover some geography. Prime example, Long Island, New York. Long Island is 110 miles long and then varying widths along it. We've got 18,000 access points deployed covering all of Long Island, and the ability to seamlessly roam from one access point to another as you move throughout Long Island. That's the kind of thing that the controller allows, or the ability to remotely manage the radio resources, transmit power, what channel should I operate on at any given moment, based on the real-time environment. The controller manages that type of stuff as well. So in these high density, high noise floor environments like stadiums and convention centers, where the RF environment is constantly changing, the controller really dictates what each and every access point does at any given moment. Moving from there, we've got the Wi-Fi Manager, which is our element management solution. So what that product does is it allows you to monitor, manage, configure, control all of the access points in real time, regardless of where they're located. So if you're an integrator and you've got 100 customers that you've deployed Wi-Fi networks for in the city, in the region, in the nation, in the world, one instance of Wi-Fi Manager can monitor and manage all of those. Those access points can be behind firewalls, they can be subtended behind routers, they can be over the internet. The access points actually have the ability to establish their own connection to Wi-Fi Manager, and then that connection stays up, even with the firewalls and then being on private IP addresses. So for someone that wants to offer a managed service type situation to their customers, Wi-Fi Manager is very, very ideal. And when I say scalable, it supports up to 100,000 access points. The controller supports up to 2,000 access points, and it can be stacked or daisy chained with other controllers as the network grows beyond that. Again, we build networks for very, very large operators. So we build on a very, very large scale, but we're able to scale down to very small. You know, Burger King or McDonald's, 2 access points. City of Long Island, 18,000 access points. Lastly, Wi-Fi Business Analyzer. It's really a trend analysis tool, so it crunches all the data from all of the access points, the controller and Wi-Fi manager, and then presents the statistics in a management level fashion. So it lets you see what's going on the network, where you need to add capacity, where you may be able to remove radios to reallocate to other places. So what's being overutilized, what's being underutilized. So moving from the Wi-Fi portfolio, I'm going to go to the microwave portfolio. It's called the Ericsson Mini-Link portfolio. And then on the indirect channel side, my marketing department coined the term wireless fiber because it paints a picture in your mind of exactly what the microwave portfolio does. It's like establishing a fiber connection, but it's wireless. So now you've got an alternative to fiber or a backup to a fiber connection using wireless licensed spectrum for the most part. So our wireless fiber portfolio consists of mostly licensed spectrum. So other than the 60 gigahertz spectrum, everything is licensed. So the PT2020 is an all outdoor solution. So no footprint is needed inside, no rack space or anything like that. So you've got a radio that's mounted out on the tower, on a pole, on a wall, and then you would have an antenna mounted to it, varying sizes depending on the distances that you need to traverse. So 6 gigahertz to 40 gigahertz spectrum licensed. Then we move to our PT3060, which is our millimeter wave product, which is unlicensed, oftentimes called V-band spectrum. That product today is about the size of a basketball. We use it a lot for small cell backhaul, so we wanted it to be physically appealing to the eye. We didn't want it to be something that was somewhat of an eyesore since it's going to be mounted low on a light pole or something like that outside. That product will deliver 320 megabits per second today. The 6020 portfolio or product line is an E-band product. So it's a light licensed product, so it's a very inexpensive 10-year license. Full gigabit of capacity, full duplex in only 250 megahertz of spectrum. Our competitors require the entire 1,000 megahertz of spectrum to deliver that full gigabit. We deliver it in 250 megabits of spectrum, so very, very spectrally efficient. Lastly, our split box product, the Mini-Link CN. So we've got an indoor unit and an outdoor unit. The indoor unit allows you to connect interfaces for T1s, DS3s, and things like that, as well as Ethernet and fiber. And then you've got the outdoor unit, which would then connect to your antenna. Now in the booth, or at our kiosk over here, I've actually got our a product from our newer portfolio that we introduced today actually. So I've got the 6352 sitting on the booth. That is our new E-band product. Again, full duplex, and we're delivering a full 5 gigabits per second of spectrum on the transmit and the receive simultaneously. And we have the ability to do that in about 750 megahertz of spectrum. So still extremely spectrally efficient. I'll come back closer to myself. This is the new millimeter wave product, 60 gigahertz product. So we've made it smaller and we've made it faster. So we went from basketball sized and 320 megabits per second to softball sized and a full gigabit of capacity. And again, that's full duplex. You'll also notice that the older one has this thicker plate behind it and there's some electronics in it. We've actually incorporated all of the electronics into the smaller ball. So this is purely just a mounting plate now. So we've made it a third the size. We've tripled the capacity, and we've pulled the electronics into the product so it's less bulky. And one of the things I really like about that particular product is it typically gets mounted to a wall or something that you can't stand behind in order to align the product. So we actually had a camera developed that snaps right into the bottom of the unit, has Wi-Fi, and there's an app that goes on your smartphone or smart device or laptop that allows you to see what the camera sees, so you can align the product by looking at your device, and then you'll do some fine tuning once you've homed in. So pretty unique and pretty innovative product. The last one that I'll mention of what's shown on this slide is the Mini-Link 6363. So again, the theme is we're making things smaller while we're making them faster and more powerful. So the previous version of this product was the same size as this. So we've miniaturized that product, and we've also increased its power and its capability. So you'll be seeing smaller products with greater capability. And the reason for that is when mounting products like this on towers or things like that, oftentimes the size of the product and the weight of the product dictates what your monthly expense is. So last thing I'll touch on is our unified communications portfolio. So again, we talked about that corporate communications network. So you had your voice communications with your phone system, you had your Wi-Fi providing basically access to your resources throughout the infrastructure, throughout the corporation. And then if there were multiple buildings, you had your microwave. So here's your voice portfolio. So everything from your branch office or your remote or your temporary location, which would utilize the SBG 1000, so great for one person to 15. I think about that construction company that has that temporary trailer that they deploy at all of the construction sites that they're working at, so it becomes their office away from the office. That's what this SBG 1000 is. So it's your phone system, it's your voicemail system, it's your automated attendant, it's your Wi-Fi access point, and it's your VPN giving you secure tunneled access to your corporate network so your data is secure. Then you've got your small to medium business with the EMG 80, well suited for up to 60 seats. So again, small, medium business. And then you've got your large office or your large location with the UCP, which is well suited for up to 2,000 seats. Unified communications, presence-aware applications. If you think about applications that you have running on your computer that allow you to know when your coworkers are at their desk, you can instant message with them, you can video conference and all of that stuff. All of those features and functionalities and the apps that do that run on all of these products. Gotcha. Lastly, our switches. Nothing super exciting about switches, except for these switches do the same thing all the other ones do, but at a much, much lower price. Layer 2, Layer 3 switches, 24, 48 port, PoE, PoE plus, and then to the your far right, we've got the MDF or main closet switches and fiber aggregation switches, 24 and 48 port of all, SFP, SFPX, so very, very high capacity switches, and priced very, very disruptively. So in summary, for that enterprise solution, for that end-to-end connectivity solution, Ericsson brings to bear a Wi-Fi portfolio that has an entire suite of indoor and outdoor products that perform very, very well in high noise floor, high density environments, and a solution that scales very well, anywhere from 1 or 2 access points to thousands of access points. Unified communications portfolio that offers a complete suite of capabilities, and it's not the type of scenario where you're being nickeled and dimed on all of the various functionality. Unified communications, presence aware, and all of those types of things right there for you. Switches, again, Layer 2, Layer 3 switches, very, very disruptive price-wise with regard to the way we've positioned the switches. And then lastly, microwave portfolio, or as my marketing department says, wireless fiber, to allow you to have an alternative to fiber connectivity, a situation where you can replace leased lines, so you're removing some OpEx out of your annual expense in situations where you want to protect critical data or access to a site that is critical, an alternative or a backup to that fiber connectivity in the event that something were to happen with that fiber connection. So I want to thank you guys for sitting through this and spending some time with me, and any questions that you may have, I'd be delighted to answer. Thank you very much.